it's that same thing. Like it gets so big in my head, like how big of a deal it is and how I don't want to go and I fight it and I fight it and I fight it. I'm not gonna go. I don't need to go. I'm too busy. I have to do this. I have to do that. Like I create all sorts of excuses and it's gonna be a waste of time and like that, like can get really sick in the way that I think about it. And then every time I'd go, I'd feel better. Welcome back to the PMR Pod. I'm Andrew. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. This is episode 66. I just before we get going, I just wanted to express my gratitude that we're back together, that we're back recording this thing, and I really felt like some really great energy and really came off the recording last time, just feeling like a new man. So this pod means a lot. Listeners mean a lot. You mean a lot to me, and really excited for this one.
Oh yeah, man, I appreciate that. I agree with that. My name is Mitch. I'm an addict and alcoholic, episode 66. And I share your sentiment. Uh, I love I love just getting back to the OG way, you and I ripping it. We're gonna try to get some guests on here coming
Mm.
up, but uh feels good to just wake up, jump on Zoom with you and talk. So I'm excited for today. I think we're talking about a couple things. We'll see what we actually end up talking about. But talking about maybe catering this episode to sharing our experience with being a newcomer, and any suggestions or if there's anything to be gleaned from someone listening that might be new to the program.
Mm.
Uh, or probably, I mean, I know I'll get something out of it, and I'm not new to the program, so it's really for everyone. But we're gonna try to cater it a little bit, maybe, to a newcomer and share our experience with that and what that looked like. Try to share like the feelings and emotions and experiences from that time, and see if it helps anybody.
I love the idea, and it's funny. I was chuckling to myself because when we have like a loose idea, like we're when we don't have a strict like, oh, we have a guest today, or we have this is exactly what we're talking about. I just love seeing where the episode goes because we could start somewhere and we could end like somewhere else completely, and it's still I think valuable for me. I think valuable for us and valuable for a listener if they want to check it out. So yeah, I love this idea, and I was thinking like 66 episodes and some really cool guests and everything else that we've done. We've had to have talked kind of explicitly about what it means to be a newcomer. What does that mean? What does that entail? What kind of feelings did we go through? What was our story like? But we really have it. We told our story a year and a half ago almost at this point. Like we both kind of told our story. But we didn't really go into too much detail, I don't think, about what it was like in the beginning. And you know, I I'm curious to see what you kind of think because a newcomer and it's kind of complicated because we have this like idea like we always want to have the mindset that we're brand new at this and that we're approaching every day like nobody is beating somebody else in their sobriety time. All we have is when we wake up that 24 hours then we're tied with everyone else. So it's almost like this thing in the program that we're all kind of supposed to be fresh faced and new at this, but what is a newcomer like? What does that mean to you? What do what do you think about? How would you define that? How does that look for you?
Hmm. What does a newcomer look? I mean, I think like uh there's probably a couple ways you could describe it. Obviously, I feel like someone within their first like 90 days, because we ask at a lot of the meetings, like if you're in your first 90 days, raise your hand. So maybe if you had to put a number on it, first 90 days as a newcomer, and there's a lot of talk of like 90 and 90, which is 90 meetings in 90 days, your first 90 days, it would behoove you maybe to do, a meeting a day. Uh, I didn't do it. I tried. Uh, but I think also it's like you could also say a newcomer, someone that uh, is like starting the steps or early on in the
Mm.
steps or step one, two, or three. I don't know. Anyone that's new to the program, really, I guess that first year you could say is a newcomer. I know they like, but then there's like the flip side of it. Like I've met people with like 30 days. I've met people with like 1 year, uh, which to me, talking with them and hearing them seem to have, if you want to say better program, or maybe they were like more spiritually connected at that point
Mm.
than I was at 4, 5, 6 years, So uh, I could, I feel like it ebbs and flows, but I guess like based off pure experience or time in the rooms, newcomer, I feel like would be like first like 90 days, maybe.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I agree, and that's the strict terms. It's hard, like, to remove ourselves from the feeling of like what it means in our program, like to be a newcomer, because I think if I put myself in the shoes of some of these listening who's never been to a meeting, is not really familiar with it, like, you know knowing what that means to, like, oh, I'm under 90 days, like 90 days, what, 90 days trying to stop drinking, or 90 days sober, or 90 days without alcohol, or 90 days just smoking weed, or whatever the heck it means to them. Like, I think it's a really fluid thing, being a
Yeah.
newcomer, in recovery. I think 90 days is a really good like way to just kind of blanket define it. Like if we have to throw a label on it, I think that's a pretty good cutoff, because I know for me, like initially after that 90 days was tough. And just a disclaimer, I didn't do 90 meetings in 90 days either. I tried, and I probably went to 5 a week. But if there's anyone listening who's new and is discouraged and thinks they can't get this because people are telling them that they got to get to 90 meetings in 90 days or they're screwed. That was not my experience. I wasn't screwed. So get to as many meetings as you can is my, recommendation, but
Yeah.
that doesn't have to be a strict number on it, I don't think. It's funny, like I had whatever 2+ years, and then I was working the job and at the treatment center, and it was terrific, but it was a lot of 3 to 11s, and I wasn't going to a lot of meetings, and I just felt like my program was off, right? And I think that at any point in our recoveries we have the opportunity to like be a newcomer again.
Hmm.
Not that we've relapsed, but when I changed jobs and got back into a job that was more normal hours, I'm back in meetings. I try to go to 3 or 4 a week, and sometimes I do more, and sometimes I'm not able to make it. My sponsor said something really impactful to me. He was like, listen, when I text him and say, hey, my parents want to get dinner with me and my aunt, and they just want to spend some family time and whatever. But we have a meeting tonight. What should I tell them? Because I asked him these things because I don't know what to do still. um he says, you didn't get sober. He says, how do you feel? I say, I feel pretty good. And he said, well, you reached out to me, and that's a good thing. He said, you didn't get sober, like you got sober to be able to be there for your family. So being able to go to see my family and spend time with them, it's not more important than a meeting, but that's something that the program has given me. And if I can be flexible and maybe find another meeting later in the week or something like that, or at a different time, then we get sober to enjoy these experiences with the people we love. So that's just a little aside. But when I got back, dude, like, uh, I was back regular meetings pretty recently in November is when I started getting back to it. And I felt like new again. I felt like I felt, did you ever feel like that nervousness, like butterflies stepping into a meeting? Like maybe it wasn't even your first time there, but like it was the whole first couple months going in, you just be like, is this real? Like people are going to look at me and judge me and all that, like, that crazy spew of thoughts just like going through my head. And I had that again. And I was like, that's how I knew, like, wow, I've been away for fucking way too long. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I love the idea of getting like being a newcomer, having fresh eyes all the time. I hear
Mm.
a lot, and even when I'm like rereading the book or rereading things with others, like you pick up different things as you go. I think we've talked about before, like a while ago, about like as you progress in your recovery, you see things differently, you hear things differently, you examine things differently. And there's always an opportunity to like dive back all the way in. You can do 90 and 90 today. Like you can start doing that again today. Like all those suggestions for newcomers aren't just for newcomers. It's like if you're feeling away from the program, and it was suggested to me honestly when I was like out of meetings for like basically out for like those couple of years, to like re-dive in hardcore,
Hmm.
uh, because I was out for so long. So um, I think that's a good point. I heard someone talking at a meeting like a couple weeks ago. Yeah, it was taking a cake for like 30 something years, like 39 years. And he was like, he started his uh, birthday talk with saying like, I need this program more today than I ever have needed it. Like I need to
Mm.
be more into this program more now than at any other point in my recovery, because today I have more things than I had when I walked in the door the first day. And he was like, I have more things materially, like spiritually, like just in general. So his program, he feels like, and I love listening to people with prolonged recovery because I need to hear that. Like he feels like he needs to do more in the program now than ever. And that really struck me. But I wanted to ask you, like, take us to what your first meeting was like.
Yeah. Well, I just kind of talked about it a little bit. I do want to say hearing hearing what you just said is it definitely impacts me. Hearing that guy was probably amazing. I think we talked about this last episode, like uh the number of years you have is not going to keep, the time you have won't keep you sober.
Hmm.
At any point it could slip. And it's important for me to remember that, like, it's not like uh uh as the disease of addiction progresses, like so too does recovery
Yeah.
progress. It has to be progressive. There's no like check of the box and now we're all set because we did 90 and 90, or we went, we did the 12 steps and we did that for a year, and now we feel good. No, it's like I was recently sitting and with my sponsor, and he was like, you think it's time to write another inventory? And I was like, yes, I think so. So that's what it is. It's a big circle. We just go around and around. But um man, I mean, I got um I got out of heroin for weekends. I mean, heroin wellness is a really kind of crazy, like, unique spot where like they give you like weekend passes.
Hmm.
My parents picked me up and I went home, but I had a plan. That was really important for me, is to have a plan. And to know the meetings I was going to go to every night and know who I was going to call and all that stuff. And I went to this meeting, first meeting, and I had gone to meetings off site with Heron. Like they had thrown us into the vans and brought us out. And I didn't identify. And, I was just kind of fooling around with some of the other guys like the whole time, and going up and getting, coffee 6 times and eating all the food they had, like just when I look back at it now, really selfish and just kind of self-centered and sick, just kind of behavior. Like I'm gonna do everything I can and not listen to these people. Probably went to the bathroom like 7 times in an hour. And just for me, just what was to be expected with where my head was at. And and I looked around and I was hearing people at this time that were like, man, and if anyone's listening and they identify with this, I get it. Like I was hearing people talk about steps and this program and their higher power and things going on in their lives, and they were like, they ended by just saying like, I just need to turn it over and let go of control and and I'm sitting there, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, no, take control. Like, what are you talking about? Like, hearing about these people's problems and what they're going through, and I'm like, you know, what's wrong with these people? Like, talking about like give it up to God. Like these people are like, I felt bad. I was like, these people are brainwashed and sick and they have no will.
Mm-hmm.
Like, go do something about your problems. Like, go, whatever. And it's what I was hearing. But they were so calm and like collected and smiling. And I was like, what's wrong with this? There's something off about this. Like, you know what I mean? I didn't know that there was something wrong with me.
Right.
Like that the person that was off is me. And so I went, that was whatever. That was in, and when we were in going off site with Heron, and I went home and I distinctly remember just nervous. Like I had this blue chair app and I was like, all right, well, there's a meeting over here at this church at 7 and Friday night. I'm like, there's probably not going to be anyone there. It's Friday night. Why would be anybody there? And I walked, I parked my car and I walked up into the church and, I just was like so nervous, like trying to convince myself, like, oh, they probably canceled it, or it's probably not even really a thing. And I got in there, and there was people sitting in the hall, and I was like, shit, there are people here,
Mm-hmm.
and I at that point, that's the way you think, right? When you're, well, at least the way I thought when I was really new and was everyone's eyes are on me. I can't, I gotta look good. I look like I know what I'm doing. Gotta look like I've been here before. Gotta look like I'm not new. And I remember like getting ready for the meeting too, like dressing up and just like what the heck was, just thinking that, I gotta make a good impression on these people.
Right.
And I hopped in the meeting and sat down, sat in the back, and sat away from everybody I could, just in the corner. Like, don't, with a big old look on my face, don't look at me, and don't sit next to me, and don't, God forbid, you come talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
And and then something crazy happened. Like, and this is I don't know if this is typical. I don't know. I think it's happened to some people. I've heard it before, but somebody shared that night. It was his older man, and not like old, like not elderly, but in his 50s, um and his drug of choice was not mine, but he shared a story that was that I identified with really hard. He was from my area and he had an athletic background, and it was just like it hit me between the eyes, and in that, like, I didn't make this decision. I didn't do this. Something greater than me, I believe, did. But everything, like, it was like I was went from seeing something in black and white to color, like, immediately. Like, you know what I mean? And it was insane. It was just immediate. And I sat there, and this guy's words were just like washing over me. Um, and it was temporary feeling. I mean, I was, I was still, in that stage where it's just everything's very tense and I'm anxious and going through everything else, but at that time in that brief moment, like I was like, oh, like, and remember settling into my chair, like relaxing. And I was like, oh, I like this. Like I belong here. Um, I should be in this chair right now, listening to this fellow speak. Um, and that was one of the most probably, one of the most powerful moments in my life is that like a full 180-degree change from like pure hatred and not wanting anything to do with these people or this place and to like a real like something greater than me like gave me a shot of love like for 2 seconds. Like it wasn't it's not something that just made my recovery immediately perfect, but
Right.
it gave me like a little bit of hope. And I heard this guy speak and I remember um I'm looking at his outfit and he's wearing like it's like late spring here in Boston and he's wearing like Birkenstocks and socks and just like total like just dude wear, just like totally relaxed and wearing like a light flannel and like just chilling. And uh his whole demeanor just looked like peace.
Mm.
And I wanted to go I did wanted to go up to him and because one of the homework things I had from Heron was
Homework.
get a sponsor. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna ask this guy. I want what this guy has. Um, and I didn't. I was too nervous, and I probably shared this on this podcast, but the next day I was doing errands with my mother, and I went to Bed Bath and Beyond with her, and we're in the park at a Bed Bath and Beyond, and I see this guy, same
That's
guy, walking right in the fucking parking lot, like 2 cars from us. And I immediately like I have got to say something to this guy. And I kind of panic and totally break anonymity.
yeah.
And I'm like, I remember you from last night at and he comes up to me and he's like, Jesus Christ, you just, take it easy. Um and he said, "Listen, I don't know if you believe in God. Do you have a higher power?" I said, "I'm working on it." And he said, "Well, something wanted you and I to be here in this parking lot, um, and I think something wants us to work together." And I said, "Yeah, I think so." And he's been my sponsor ever since. So
Damn.
that that was my experience, and it wasn't my first meeting, right? Like I spent that time at Heron going off site probably 2-3 times a week, and I didn't want to be there. Um, and this one time this kind of happened. So that was it.
Mm. That's really wild. Yeah, you've shared that story before, but for whatever reason, this time just was like hit me a little bit harder in terms of just how like beautiful that kind of played out for you. You know, that's nuts.
It was crazy. It was
Yeah,
crazy. All
that is
right, now I
nuts.
gotta hear. Now I gotta hear what it was like for you.
Not like that. Not like that. I think the first meeting I went to, probably the same as you, was like in treatment. We would get on the druggy buggy and go to a
Mm,
meeting. And that's where I picked up my white chip at this church, like next to the treatment facility. Uh, and I remember that viscerally, the white chip at least.
yep.
And then my 30-day, I got there also, which was awesome. And then left to my own devices. Once I got to back home and was doing like IOP and stuff, they had meetings there too. And I would go to those, but never like my feelings were very like very frustrated with myself. Like I can't believe I'm in here, you know.
Hmm.
I can't believe I have to be in here. Can't believe this is what I have to do. Um, very frustrated. I think like maybe the first 6 months I was like pink clouded out, or 3 months. I was like pink clouded out. Like I was all in, I was bought into it. And then once I started to see what it took, that there was work involved and there was God involved, and that it was for life, I was
Yeah.
real stuck up on the for life thing for a while. Like, well, wait, like I'm only really doing this so I can get back into school and get back into good graces and get back, maybe mend relationships with my family and my mom and some friends. I'm not really here for the long haul.
Hmm.
And that began like, my footsteps out of the door. But I think as you were talking, I was thinking too about, I started to go to these meetings in Columbus, when I was back at school. And there's a couple dudes that I like had completely forgotten about, honestly, until you were talking, that like came and picked me up and took me to a meeting, like asked me to, like, took me and we went and got food together, checked in on me, called me a lot. And I remember like being like intimidated by their kindness, which is kind
Hmm.
of crazy. Like, uh I kind of like, I wanted to hold myself in that pain too, I think still. Um and like these dudes were just like super nice and like were willing to drive far, to come and pick me up from where I was at. And like one of them had kept checking in on me up until like 3 or 4 years, when I like wouldn't respond, and like kept checking up on me. So I think I should probably call him today. Uh, but it's like, uh my early meeting experience and newcomer experience was, I wanted to like get it done as fast as I could, and I had a sponsor in the beginning that I asked at a young person's meeting in Columbus, and then like wouldn't do the work how I was asked to do it, and then began, I just like couldn't do it. I couldn't completely surrender to the program how it was asked. Um and felt a strong sense of being able to do it on my own, you know, which is like not something that I'm trying to preach, and it was not a good idea. I think my circumstances like, really different, and had things not happened exactly how they did, I think I would have relapsed again, or relapsed. Um but just like I don't know how, I was just talking about this at a meeting a couple of days ago. I really don't know how I stayed sober without, a consistent program or consistent sponsor in the program. I had Greg, who was like we've said kind of like my quasi sponsor.
Right.
I've had Todd, I have my mom, I had a really close friends and stuff like that. But you see all the time in the program that's not enough. So it's kind of weird. I kind of honestly feel like a sense of like shame, or like I should have relapsed then, to like, because like I would never recommend that to anyone, you
Mm.
know. It was not a
It's
good idea.
gratitude, man. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
you
It's just like my
relapse,
newcomer
you
experience was
die.
like, yeah, yeah, that's true. It's just, I feel like my newcomer experience was uh different because I made it through without doing meetings without doing what was advised,
Mm.
or I didn't make it through. I mean, a lot of other things that helped me make it through, but uh I will tell you, pushed me to the edge of like insanity though. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, just like, I mean, I'm not like a guy who's like, oh, everything happens for a reason and you were in the right, right place at the right time and everything else. Like that's not me. But you know, you got what you needed at the time. Like you did treatment, you did IOP, and doing this in college is I can't imagine doing it in college. I didn't do it in college. Um, I was in a different situation. But I think our stories are like I think it's good that our stories are so different here. Like because it shows like it could work either way.
Hmm.
Because think about like if you think about where we have been since, I mean, I'm 2.5 years clean and sober. You are 7, correct?
Yep.
Just celebrated a little over a month ago, I know. And um you found this program for real. What, year 4,
Yeah.
3?
Probably
Uh,
4.
Yeah. And I found this program for a time and then I kind of drifted
Mm.
and I'm back. Like none of this, and for people who it has worked out this way, like kudos and congrats. Like if you've been able to stay consistent the whole time in all of your recovery, that's amazing. And that's probably word for word how the book is written. But like we're human. Like we're human and we're addicts and alcoholics and things don't work out perfectly ever. Like ever. And I've never seen anything work out perfectly, except like in my head when I fantasize about how this high would be the perfect high and how this drunk would, you know what I mean? Like that was the only, like, it was all in my head too. Like neither of our recoveries have been perfect. And our experiences as newcomers were different too. But, you know, it's like in my experience, like the ebbs and the flows of us being involved in the program and not, like it's just a part of life. Like it's sometimes we're close and sometimes we've drifted a little bit. Like I think the responsibility of us and the thing that the program teaches us is, yeah, we'll drift, but you know do we have the tools and do we have the connection with our higher power, and are we going to be willing to put away our pride and ego and come back in? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a point of shame. It can be just a point of learning and almost like a cautionary tale. Like if I went out like 2 years not plugged into the program anymore, yeah, I'd probably be in big trouble. Um, like and hearing that you did it and you made it through, it doesn't tell me that I could do that and make it through. It tells me that you're pretty lucky and you had some pretty strong people around you to help you.
Yeah.
And that you were probably pretty miserable by the end of that. Like, am I
Yeah.
wrong?
No, you're right. And I think like I still went to meetings through the dry spell that I was on. Like I would go once or twice a month or once every other week or something like that. And then it turned into like locking myself in my room and
Mhm.
isolating. And I was like, if I go out, I'm gonna drink. So I would lock myself in my room and I had friends that would come and check on me and hang out with me in my room because I couldn't leave. So it wasn't like I was like skipping, it wasn't like I was doing great without the program. And I think like um that like for the newcomer too, it's hard, especially young. Like we got sober young, and it's just hard to be around other people our age and friends continue to do the things that we no longer, are being told we can't do. You know,
Mm.
you have to surrender to this program, and part of being in this program is not doing those things anymore. And I had such identity attached to drugs and alcohol and the things surrounding drugs and alcohol, like parties and whatever. Um, and uh, I wanted to have both,
Mm.
honestly. Like especially coming back into like I went right back into the same situation that I was in before. So I had the same people, places, and things all around me pretty much. Some friends wouldn't, that I was with before using friends that dissipated, and new, more genuine friendships grew there, which I'm very thankful for. But yeah, I think I was just talking at another meeting. I had another massive surrender for me in my recovery, and like surrender is such a like scary word. I heard someone say that they use abandon instead. Like I abandoned my will,
Mhm.
because surrender is kind of like you're deciding to do it. Abandon is like you can have everything.
Yep.
I kind of like that. But like I had another big abandon or surrender at like year 3.5 or 4. because I just like I was gonna go drink and use, and I was gonna do it big time. Like I had a plan. I knew what I was gonna do. I was gonna start with smoking. I was gonna, all this stuff, and I know where that would have gone. Um, so I kind of got humbled uh, and sat down and kind of sat straight, by my home group when I finally found them, which I, eternally grateful for them. But uh, for the newcomer, when you go into a meeting and you hear like steps and higher power, and you're like, I don't even want to be here in the first place, and that stuff sounds way too much, I think just try to find one voice that you agree with, or one voice that you can find something that they're saying something like, oh,
Mm.
I've had that experience. Kind of like what you shared.
Yeah.
You had
Yeah.
that like 2 seconds or whatever, where you're like, oh, I agree with that, or that hit me somewhere. And really hold on to that, because more of those feelings will come if you keep going. You'll be able to stack those, and you'll be able to start seeing a pattern, you know. Um, and for me, like I knew where I was supposed to be the whole time, you know, yeah, like in the back of my head. You have the voice that's like the one that knows what's up. That
Mm-hmm.
one, that's why I would go back every like month or so, or. I knew I was supposed to be there. Um, but I refused to completely surrender to this program and to a higher power. Uh, and until I did, I was kind of in like a really tough spot mentally, and hurting people and stuff like that. So
Mm.
I'm thankful that I have, and I don't regret it. But I appreciate you talking with me about it, because it's always kind of been like a weird thing. But I shared it at a group level a couple nights ago, and someone came up and said, like, I'm in the midst of a dry spell right now. I haven't gone to a meeting in 2 years. And I really needed to hear you talk about how you were dry. So that's all I needed to know, like
Yeah.
it's important to
Yeah.
share. I think it's important to share with rigorous honesty. So,
Yeah. The crazy thing is, and then you kind of hear this with what you said, is like when I would go periods without like early on, like, and even like working at my last job, like I'd go periods without meetings for a week or weeks, and the whole time, like, it's that same thing. Like it gets so big in my head, like how big of a deal it is, and how I don't want to go, and I fight it and I fight it and I fight it. I'm not gonna go. I don't need to go. I'm too busy. I have to do this. I have to do that. Like I create all sorts of excuses, and it's gonna be a waste of time, and like that. Like I can get really sick in the way that I think about it, and then every time I'd go, I'd feel better, you know. And then I'd leave, and then the next day would come, and the next day would come, and then now I'm doing the same thing. I don't need to go, and then I go again a week later, and I feel better. And it's like how quickly we forget like the solution, I think. And especially as a newcomer, like I built up, the idea of, oh, like it's just such a commitment. And I was in a different situation than you. Like I wasn't going back to the same people, places, and things. Some of the same places, but not to the same degree that you were. And I didn't put myself like you kind of were just like back, like surrounded by drugs and alcohol again, just out here staying sober. And then it kind of evolved to the point where you were locking yourself in your room. Like I was in a different situation where now I'm living with my parents, and like I'm like kind of thinking like, wow, like this is pretty boring. Um, and I was a person that loved the chaos. Like I thrived on it. That's how I survived, really, is I like every day it was a different disaster occurring. And I was like what fed me, what gave me energy. And now I'm sober and I'm living at home, and I'm just like wondering, like Friday, Saturday night, it's just like I wanted to I like you were in the midst of it, and I wanted to seek it out. Like I wanted to go surround myself with people who were drinking and doing drugs. Like I wanted, it's almost like I wanted to see how close I could get to it without doing it,
Hmm.
you know? Um,
Well,
and it was scary. And if anyone feels like that, I get it. Like I did. I wanted like, but that was you know what that did is that would give me a rush for a couple hours and then it would fuck me up for 2 or 3 days after. You know what I mean? It wasn't worth it. Like, and I didn't think, you know, I didn't think there were any other ways to have fun. Like I had to go do that. Like I had to go be around that. Like if I'm not gonna do it, like there's no other way for me to hang out with people my age or meet girls or do whatever. Like if I'm not gonna be surrounded by this drinking, this drugging, whatever. And how fucking wrong I was, dude.
yeah,
Like so my best friends are people I've met outside of stuff like that. Like my girlfriend I met at the gym. It's like there's a whole world outside of drugs and alcohol. Like it's such a
yeah,
tiny little sliver. You know what I mean?
yeah. I agree, and I agree with that. Like all the relationships I have today, were outside. Mostly, all of them were made outside of. I have a couple OG friends that like literally have my back. I've been blessed, really. Like people talk about having friends and stuff like that, but because I don't have brothers and sisters, and I'm just raised with my mom and I've always kind of treated some of the guys in my life as like brothers, in a
Mm-hmm.
real sense. And so I've been blessed to have, a really good group of guys that check in on me, always have, always will, and I check in on them. But I will say though, bro, my first 9 months, I was in a similar situation because my mom moved from Maryland to Ohio,
Mm.
so it was a new town. I did IOP there, and I got a job at a restaurant. And it was 9 months straight before I could get back into school. I had to like reapply and all that shit, get back on the team. It was like 9 months straight of I worked 6 days a week at a restaurant. I like ripped ciggies and black and milds,
Mm-hmm.
played video games, packed lips, and like would go to meetings. And that's when in a good portion of that I was doing meetings pretty consistently. But uh, I remember like staff, drinking and stuff like that at the restaurant, and I didn't tell anyone I was sober or why I was there when I was like 20, or anything like that. Uh, and the owner, I found out like much, much later, uh, was in recovery from drugs and alcohol through the church. I don't think I'm actually not sure if he was in our program or not, but I know that he was in recovery from drugs and alcohol. So I wonder if I always kind of think I wonder if he knew anything because I
Mm.
ended up working there for like 3 years. Like the first 9 months I was out of school, and then in the summers, and that dude was like the most loving, just like awesome boss. But I relate to. I remember like watching stories and stuff like that being home before I went back
Mm.
to school and seeing like everyone having fun and like Saturday nights staff would go out and like always invited me to the bar. I remember the first time I tried to go to the bar with staff, I was probably like 4 months sober. I drove there after work. I was like, I can do it. I literally it was big glass window bar. I could see all the staff at the table right there, like chilling. And I looked in from my car and I like freaked out and I just drove home.
Mm-hmm.
I
I've done that.
was like, there's no way I can go in there, bro. There's absolutely no way I can go in there, So a lot of my story is like and I'm sure you agree too. A lot of my story in hindsight is my higher power just like holding it the fuck down, you
Yep.
know.
Yep.
Like it was not me, you know. It was like putting people in my way, putting things in my way, oh, like, I'm feeling sick tonight or whatever it was. It was always something to like stop me or multiple things to try to stop me right before that. So
Mm. I agree. I mean, the same things happen to me. I've been in situations, get invited to a bar, get invited to a party, get invited, whatever. And I'd be halfway there and I'd panic. I'd say I gotta turn around, and then just say I gotta go home. I cannot do this. And I'm grateful for those moments, to be honest with you. And I'm grateful now that it's a little bit different. Um, And I wish I could tell myself, like, as a newcomer, like, it's going to change.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It's not going to be like this. Like, and it's not even like the circumstances around like, not it's not about the external shit. It's not about like my life and, your job is going to change and the way you interact with the world is going to change. And that stuff does change, but that wasn't the stuff that mattered really. Like, and that matters now. It's like what I wanted to change so bad was like how I felt on the inside. Like just how much I fucking hated myself. Like I really did not like myself.
Hmm.
And I really thought, like, what's wrong with me? And alone and
Hmm.
in a whole room of people with the same issue as me and looking for differences. Like, I'm the youngest person here and these people are old and she's a woman, so we're not the same. And if she says something that I agree with, well, then we couldn't be the same at all because she's a 50-year-old woman and all this, like, anything. Like, my brain, and this was like a weapon that I think my addiction used, is like I was so good at painting a negative picture of myself, because it made it easier for me to use.
Hmm.
And I just was, and then it's like I'm sober, so now I have this like muscle that is really good at making me feel like shit, but I don't have drugs and alcohol anymore, and that's like, for a newcomer, like, that's the most dangerous place, I think. Early on, that was really like when I was most vulnerable to relapse in that stage. Because I just wanted relief, like relief, relief, relief. And these people are all telling me like relief is going to be in God.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh God, right? Like, it just was like, it felt like I was between a rock and a hard place, really. Like, what? Like, I can't use drugs anymore. And now you're telling me the only way that I can get relief from this way that I'm feeling inside is by like getting close with like a higher power that I'm supposed to make. And I just, there's a lot of pride and ego in that. Um, and we don't realize, like, I didn't realize, I thought ego meant like I have to think really highly of myself, right? But I don't think it means that. Like, it just means that I think about myself all the time. Like, not good or bad specifically, just all the time about me.
Yeah.
And I did. I think one of the biggest obstacles as a newcomer for me was trying to abandon that. And it's a daily thing still, but like the first steps of that was like praying. It's just like so against my thoughts of what I need to do. Like, I wake up, I want to just like get into it, like get into the day. I got to get all this shit done. And like really simply praying, like just for anything, like not again, let me rephrase that. Not like to, I want to, I pray that I get a girlfriend today and I pray that I make $1 million. Not like that, but like it doesn't have to be a specific way. It wasn't for me. It changes all the time. But
Hmm.
like praying really helped me. Like it really, it did. And I didn't really get with all, like, I didn't go and start talking about it at meetings immediately. But I tried it. Um, and it just, that peace that relief I was looking for, I got a little bit of it. And the best part was like I didn't feel bad about it. It's crazy.
Yeah. It is crazy. I relate. I think like uh I think it's so important to what you shared to share that it does change, it does get better. It's not
Mm.
always going to be that way because it's really hard to see. It's really, really hard to see. You kind of have to trust us on this one. You know what I mean? Like it does. And an important part of that is like doing the program as it's kind of written. Unfortunately, it is a simple program. It is like legitimately all laid out how to do it, what to do in every single situation. And like you were saying, the only thing that gets in the way of that is me, you know. Like I talk about like my initial surrender going to treatment, another surrender like 3, 4 years, and now I surrender daily. That's just like the evolution uh of my program and my recovery to this point. And I don't do it every day, but I'm aware that it would help if I did. Uh, and so like prayer, super, super important, super, super vital in my recovery at this point too. But really like the 12 steps and getting a sponsor, going to meetings, working the 12 steps daily too, like I have been blessed beyond belief where I'm at today. And I was struggling with gratitude this week, you know. I was like depressed and like I don't want to work anymore. I don't want to do the podcast anymore. I don't want to go to the gym anymore. Just like morbid self-reflection, uh and I was trying to get to the root of that, and it was like kind of work related but not really, but kind of just like because I think it was like because nothing new and exciting was happening, like everything was going really well.
Mhm.
So it's like so wild that like my program now, I hit like multiple meetings a week. I'm sponsoring. I have a great sponsor. Uh, like all my relationships are dope. Like things are vibing. And it's like my addiction will creep in and uh be like burn it all down.
Yeah,
And I'll
we got
listen.
to.
Yeah, and I'll listen.
We
You
need some
know,
chaos.
I listened for like 12 hours. So it's like it's wild. But for the
But
newcomer
it's
though, like the blessings are nuts. I think you'll attest to this. Like everything is so much better, clean and sober, I think. It has been for me. Uh Whether you're in the program or not, the program another thing that an OG told me one time when I hadn't been coming a while, and this was in Ohio, and he was like, whether you come or not, we'll be here. And that's
Mhm.
kind of like a beautiful thing of the program, honestly. Like they will love you whether you're there or not. Even people will probably pray for you when you're not there.
Mhm.
Like that's just how it works. So
Yeah, and it makes you realize, like hearing that for me, like again, this comes back to ego for me, and that the show's gonna go on whether I'm there or not.
yeah.
Like it's not, it doesn't all depend on me. Like I'm just another bozo on the bus out here. And that's something I've heard in meetings here is people getting 30, 40 years out here, and I hear that. Yeah, I'm just another bozo on the bus. I'm just another guy in the room. That's important for me to hear. And you know, just like thinking about people, maybe thinking about getting sober, thinking about getting clean, thinking they might have a problem, thinking whatever, right? I got a few I have a well, I have a brother, and he's not an alcoholic. He said doesn't have a drinking problem. He's just a regular guy. And he came to a meeting with me once, and just in solidarity. I was like fresh out of treatment and whatever else. And he came out of the meeting. I say, hey, thanks for going, and sorry I had to go and whatever else. And he was like, dude, that was like, he's like, I'm not whatever. Like, I'm not an alcoholic, but like, I learned a lot at that meeting. Um, and, and he said, he's like, I should just go and listen. And, and I don't know if he has, and I mean, maybe he probably hasn't, but, you know, that's like, if you're wondering if you're in the right place, just stay. Doesn't matter. Like you're good. You're not an alcoholic, all right, that's great, but you're gonna learn something. I
Yeah.
think I learn every single time in a meeting. I learn something. Like like and another thing is, I have friends who are who, again, they don't have drinking problems. Not that I know of, but they stopped drinking. I just actually went on vacation with a couple of them, and I said, why, because for me, I'm like, if I didn't have to stop fucking drink, I'm like, why the hell did you stop drinking? And
Yeah.
and they said, it wasn't doing anything for me.
Mm.
I looked at it and net was negative. And they were like it, so they were like, what's the point? And I kind of just thought about that, and because there'll be days when I'll question, right? Like, I didn't have a problem with this. I could go do this. I could go. It doesn't matter um, if I quote unquote had a problem with X, Y, or Z. Like, I know that it didn't do anything positive for me. Um, and that's easy to see, and that's enough for me. I don't need to analyze if I'm truly this or truly that. Like, I just know that for me it wasn't healthy. It wasn't giving me something that I can't get better when I'm sober.
Yeah.
Uh, so I don't know. It's just a couple of people who aren't in this program who almost wish they were. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. Bebe came to a meeting like last year
Mhm.
with me, and he was like, "That was the dopest thing I've ever been to." Like I learned a shit ton. Same experience. So I agree. I
Mhm.
mean, like the any sort of 12-step program or fellowship, and there's a ton. I've learned about so many more since working in treatment and facilitating some groups for some other people to go to. 12-step program, people that come together to you know, talk about those things and seek help, seek community. Probably going to have a pretty real conversation, or hear a real conversation or hear some real stuff, which you can relate to or benefit from, you know.
Mhm.
So I think it's dope. But
I think the moral of that is like, you don't know if you have a problem. You don't know if you should stop. Come check it out. Like, there's no harm in it.
yeah.
Um, and then and then it's not up to us. It's up to you.
Mhm.
And I think you know that's the hardest obstacle. I think, like, I talk to people who got sober when they were 45 or 50, and they're like, yeah, I came when I was like 20 or whatever, and I sat in the back and I left halfway through the meeting because I just like was so scared
Mhm.
that like I might have this.
Right.
And they were like, and then it wasn't bad for another 10, 12 years, and then it got bad. And I blew everything up. And I hear that all the time. Like, all the fucking time. Like, that's a typical story. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. I don't want to be that. Like, and I think that's if I could tell a newcomer anything, is like, don't fucking leave. Like, before the miracle happens is what they
Mhm.
say. But don't leave, like, before you really see what this is all about.
Yeah.
You could go drink whenever,
Yeah.
but if you're in that meeting, it might be your only chance. Like, that might be it. So fucking listen.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And do the steps too.
Jesus.
I'm sounding old, but yeah, just do the
You
fucking
got a
steps
couple
because if you
people.
don't fucking like it, like if you're going to be if you're not a newcomer, if you've been going to meetings for a couple of years like I was and hating the program and not thinking it like don't understand why everyone's so happy, I'll tell you
Mhm.
why because they did the steps and they actively do the steps. That is like just going is great. I agree. And just staying sober is great too. But like if you want to have a spiritual experience, if you want to like feel some freedom, feel some weightlessness, do the steps.
Yep. Yep. I completely agree. I completely agree. I think
If you
it's
want to.
I think it's a two-pronged program, right? There's a program and then there's a fellowship. And the fellowship happens in the meetings and the program happens in the steps. And
Hmm.
you can't really do one and not the other and be successful. But
I
you
agree.
needed you need to start with one to get in the door.
Yeah.
So get in the door. I think you got a couple people to call today. I think you got to call those one of those guys in Ohio that was picking you up for meetings, and I think you got to find a way to reach out to this guy you work for at a restaurant.
Yeah, Zach and Kamal. I call them
It's
both.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool. Yeah, it's like a like we've said, there's a lot of like your story is perfect for this whole to end us is just like, our higher power doing things for us. We talked about this a little bit last week, but there's something going on, because seeing your now sponsor in the Bed Bath and Beyond parking lot while you're doing errands with your mom, that's fucked.
That's crazy.
Really, it
Doesn't
really
happen,
is.
man.
And like where I'm at now, I have countless experiences like that, with people or calls or like some dude called me a couple weeks ago, and he was like, "Is this Mitch?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was trying to call some other Mitch. And I met this dude like 4 years ago at a meeting in the Palisade, or 3 years ago when I first moved here. Uh, and now we go to meetings together. And he was like trying to come back into the program, trying to call some other Mitch. Just like weird shit, bro.
It's
So
God, man.
yeah,
It's
it's dope.
amazing.
Thank you though, bro. I appreciate you. What
Yeah,
do you
this
got
has
on
been a good
episode?
episode.
What do you got on episode 66?
Oh, well, we debated this.
I
We
want to hear.
debated this before we started, but I'm a Star Wars fan, and so I wanted to kick off the episode saying it's time to execute Order 66. But I thought it might be a little too dark. But shout out to any Star Wars fans out there. 66 is a significant number to us. So rest in peace to all the great Jedi that died, and yeah, long live the Galactic Republic. That's about all I have.
Is Yoda did Yoda make it? He
Yoda
made
survived.
it. Okay.
Obi-Wan survived. A couple other like side, characters survived, but no, it was a mass murder, is what it was.
Hmm.
It's insane for me to be watching that at age 10.
That's right. Well, shout out the Jedi's RIP. And
Shout out George Lucas and
yeah,
not shout out Disney. We
not
don't
shout
like
out
Disney.
Disney. Yeah, that's fair. I agree. All right, well, love you, bro. We will keep coming back. This has been episode 66.
Yeah, and shout out to any newcomers out there too.
Right.
We love hearing from you, and that's why we have this is to try to create a community. So reach out to us. We're here to talk. As you can see, we both love talking. So
That's right.
hit us up. Uh,
Yeah.
that it helps us. You
Yeah.
know,
You're the
love you,
most
man.
important person in the room. That's right.
Yeah,
All
man.
right. Peace.